Alright, so today we're going to be talking about how I pack my backpack, and specifically for comfort, for lightness. This is an ultralight backpack. It doesn't have a ton of volume. For safety and just how to pack your pack for a more efficient day hiking. Now, before we get into this, some quick notes. I pack my gear mostly on priority of when I'm going to need it throughout the day, or if I'm going to need it at all. The stuff you're not going to need at all throughout the day goes at the very, very bottom, whereas stuff you may need kind of goes in the middle, and stuff you almost certainly are going to need at the very top. And every single night, this is just something I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the weather tomorrow, because if it's going to rain, I'm going to need different gear accessible than if it's not going to rain. Now, my last little thing of note here before we unload all this gear and I pack it all up and show you guys is I don't use any stuff sacks. All of my gear throughout this pack is just packed loosely inside. In the end, it's going to help fill the space more evenly. That way, I don't have any dead spots in between stuff sacks, maybe. I'm not going to have any big lumps that are bulging into my back and pressing into me while I hike. Last thing though, stuff sacks can actually harm your gear, which we'll talk about more in just a second here. So let's unload everything and we'll pack it back up, and I'll show you guys what I got going on and how I do this. Now, my first step is going to be my sleeping pad. So I take my sleeping pad and I fold it to the size of my backpack. You can see mine is kind of bent in that shape already. So you can see it is roughly the size and the shape of my backpack. But first step, I pack my pad in the backpack. Now, I have that pad on the back side because that foam is going to add extra comfort on my back, and it's also going to give the pack just a little bit of rigidity as well. Again, with a inflatable pad, you can do the same. Deflate it, fold it down to the size of your pack, and then pack it right in the back there. And then I've got a pack liner, and what this does is all of my gear is going to go inside of this pack liner. And once I'm done packing my pack, I roll it up, I fold it up tight, and it essentially waterproofs my pack. So I don't have to use waterproof fabrics in my backpack, just a simple trash bag pack liner. Now the next step is my quilt. And this is, I'll mention, where we talk about stuff sacks harming your gear. When you have a down quilt or a synthetic quilt, when you stuff it into a stuff sack, and even worse, a compression sack, and you're compressing it so tightly through doing this many times over and camping a lot, it's never really going to be the same. It's never going to expand back to what it once was. So by stuffing it and compressing it, you are actually harming it and making it less warm. So I just pack my quilt loose at the bottom. So the next step is, you've looked into the weather, you know what the conditions are going to be like. Let's say today is going to rain, but it's not going to be cold, so I probably don't need insulating layers. So these low priority items throughout the day then go at the bottom. So my gloves, my beanie, my jacket, and my wind pants. At this point, I'm going to pack my food bag. So in this food bag, I got maybe a day and a half worth of food, but it works just the same, and I do it the same way, even if I have 5 or 6 days worth of food. I put my food bag on top of my quilt and on top of the layers that I'm probably not going to need. I want it as close to my back as possible and roughly right in the middle of my pack. The reason I do this is food is heavy. It is so heavy, and it's bulky, so I want that heavy weight as close to my core and as close to all these big muscles here to carry that weight more efficiently so that I don't feel that weight as much. Now let's say I had my food bag more towards the front of the pack. What that's going to do is it's going to serve to be pulling me back all day. And I'm going to feel the weight of that food so much more than if I had it closer and tighter against my body. Now at this point, I take, this is my ground cloth. I definitely want this dry, so I pack this next You know, it's also, I'm not going to need it until I get to camp. Again, I'm trying to fill all of the space. Maybe you can see my hand here. I'm stuffing this ground cloth around the outsides of my food bag to fill that space. If you carry a cook pot and a stove and stuff, at this point, that is when I will add it. So my cook pot, I take it on the side or something, and I just kind of place that right in the center of all of my gears. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shelter. Again, no stuff sacks, just loose. And I will pack my shelter all around the edges of my cook pot. Now you could pack more clothes around your cook pot, but you definitely need to do something because those hard edges of the metal, titanium or steel, aluminum, whatever you use, those hard edges, the last thing you want is to feel your cook pot jabbing you in the back while you're hiking. So I like to make sure I have my shelter or some clothes tightly wrapped around my cook pot or anything potentially harmful to my back. Okay, so at this point, most of my pack is packed, most of my gear is put away, and we are getting to the high priority items. What do I mean is, I mentioned maybe today's going to rain, so I want my rain jacket at the very top. Maybe today is going to have a lot of mosquitoes or something, so I want my bug head net at the very top of my pack. If I know for sure that it's going to rain, then oftentimes I will just keep the rain jacket in this outer mesh pocket, again for very easy access. Now that is pretty much all the gear that I keep in my pack, except my small items. This would be medical gear or electronic stuff that, again, I'm probably going to want it throughout the day. Maybe I get a blister per se, so I want to have this stuff at the ready, so I keep it at the very, very top of my pack. Now, since electronics and stuff are heavy, I will echo what I said about the food. I want that stuff closest to my back. I do not want to have a pound worth of electronics pulling me back throughout the day. I want to have that pound closest to my back, where all of my muscles are most present and most engaged. So now you can see my pack liner, you can see my foam pad there in the back, you can see my electronics and my rain jacket at the very top. What I'm going to do is I want to protect it. So I take that trash bag pack liner and I roll it down tight. I roll it down tight to try and protect my gear if it does rain. So at this point I can close up my pack, remembering that if it's for sure going to rain, I probably have my rain jacket in the front. If my shelter, my tent, or my tarp is wet, I will probably have it strapped to the very top of my pack so I can take it out and dry it throughout the day. Before putting in water bottles or any extra gear that I may have and need, I like to give my pack a little bit of a shake just to loosen everything up. And I will also press on it just a little bit on the back here just to kind of flatten things out, make sure everything's smooth and even and is feeling pretty nice. Now I can continue on with the rest of my gear. I have a bunch of stuff that I am for sure going to want throughout the day. So some sunscreen, some chapstick. So all of this gear that I'm going to want throughout the day, I like to keep in my shoulder strap pockets here. If your pack doesn't have a shoulder strap pocket, then, maybe a mesh pocket on the outside, maybe a fanny pack, but any gear that I'm going to need throughout the day, I want to have accessible. I don't want to be opening my pack over and over, having to stop, take off my pack, and digging through it for gear. Now, I had mentioned in my Taking Care of Your Feet video, I think that's a great video and you should check it out if you haven't, but taking care of your feet when hiking, that every day I will try and wash a pair of socks. So I like to wash my socks once a day and just hang them from my pack in the sun to dry. So the final thing here would be my tent stakes. I do not like to keep these in my pack because obviously they are pointed and they could damage my gear. They could poke a hole through my tarp or my quilt, and those are expensive and I want to protect those. So I personally will always keep tent stakes in this outer mesh pocket here, mostly to protect everything else. Okay, so now we have a fully packed backpack made for comfort in that, you know, all of my gear is loose. I don't have any bulging stuff sacks. I have my foam pad on the outside of the back here. My weight is distributed evenly throughout and distributed in a way that it's going to feel lighter weight on my back by having those heavy items in the middle and closer to my core. All of my highest priority items like my rain jacket or medical kit at the very top of my pack. I may not need them, but I want to have them ready to go if I do. So that is how I pack my backpack when it comes to through hiking. If you have more tips yourself that you would like others to hear, please leave those in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Give me a little thumbs up if you like this video, and if you aren't already, please subscribe to this channel. So I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.